My name is Ashley, and this is Let's Talk Dispatch.
I do. You're gonna do it. Do it really well.
And I believe the world needs more dispatchers.
Around in the mud, blood, and
plus
beer.
years that I'm not working 4th of July. 4th of July.
Say community policing, right? What about community dispatching?
So on this show, with the help of my guests, we will educate, empower, and support the heroes behind the headset. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode here on Let's Talk Dispatch with me, Ashley, the Raspy Dispatcher. Hopefully everyone's staying warm. We're definitely getting into the rainy, cold weather here, at least in the Bay Area, which honestly is my favorite time of year. Though I have to say, as a dispatcher, last year, the rainy season was wild. Like the Bay is just, we're too sensitive. The trees were falling. They could not deal with how much rain we had last year, which made for very long work days. But on days off, I'm all for it. A little hot cocoa, on the couch, got the Christmas tree going. Like it's a whole vibe. So I hope you are staying dry. Hopefully your shift is not affected too terribly by the weather, and all of that is going well. My guest today is a retired public safety dispatcher who wants to share their story to let people know they're not alone. And they spent 6 years in Army communications in the military police, and then 28 years as a law enforcement dispatcher. And we started at the same agency. So it's going to be a wonderful chat with my guest today, Deborah. Hi, Deborah.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great.
I know. So I mentioned to them that you and me, we're like family,
Yeah.
We came from the same roots there, Sacramento Police
Exactly.
Department.
Yes. Best
Well,
place to go. I recommend it.
Well, how did you get into public safety?
Back in 1986, I went into the Army, California National Guard, as a communications specialist, and then proceeded to become military police. And so it's a weekend warrior kind of thing. So I tried to base my civilian career as to what I was doing in the Army. So I applied for like Sacramento Sheriff and all sorts of law enforcement. And then I saw the job for a dispatcher and I went and applied for it. And oh my God, they hired me.
They hired me too. It's really all questionable if you actually think about it.
Exactly. But oh my gosh, they were a great agency to work for to get your start at. It really was. But I was only there for 11 months and they released me on probation because I wasn't quite fast enough for them. And you understand that. It's a crazy busy agency. So then I got hired up in El Dorado and was there ever since.
Awesome. So cool. And yeah, I mean, it's so crazy like how different the vibes are at different agencies, you know what I mean? And like what you need to be really, really good at a certain agency, maybe compared to a different one.
Right.
Just because of the call volume,
Yeah. Yeah. Our in El Dorado, our busiest day was the slowest day that SAC PD would have.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I can deal with this. This is, it's kind of chill. And I kind of grew with the agency too, you know. So
go ahead.
Oh yeah, we started out dispatching for 3 different agencies: Fire, Placerville Police, and El Dorado County Sheriff's Office. And then as we kind of grew up, we lost Fire to Cal Fire because they did that whole fire thing in the transfer over in the rural counties of California. And then we lost Placerville PD because they got a grant to have their own dispatch. But our call volume never changed.
Yeah, everyone's still calling you.
Actually got worse.
So when you were applying for the role as a dispatcher and, trying to figure out where to land in this public safety world, did you have an idea of what dispatching looked like in the civilian realm from your experience?
Absolutely not. But I mean, it what could go wrong?
People listening at work are shutting this thing off right now. They're
I
like, nope.
know. Here,
We
let
don't
me
want the
tell you.
dispatch here. Let's talk about what can go wrong, Deborah. What
Oh,
can go wrong?
oh my gosh, the list is long and distinguished.
Mhm. For sure. For sure.
There's a reason why they say graveyard makes policy.
Graveyard makes policy. I like that. My gosh. So what was it like for you in the beginning? I know you said, SAC PD was real high volume and it was kind of a struggle there getting to the pace that they needed you to be at. But
Yeah.
as you shifted, and as you learned from a different agency, different trainers, different, what was that like for you in the beginning?
Oh my gosh. So at SAC PD, I don't know if this ever happened to you, but when we were on radio and you weren't getting it right
Mm.
then, you were kind of slow, you were freezing up, whatever, your trainer would yank your chair back and get in there
Light on it. Scoop
and do.
me.
So I got, I was used to that. So I go up to El Dorado and I'm on the busy channel. I'm kind of freezing up. I'm not catching up. And I just back my chair up. And my trainer goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Aren't you going to take over?" And she goes, "Oh, hell no. Get in there and do it." And so, yeah, that, throwing me to the wolves. But there you go. I did it.
That's funny. I remember, I remember my trainer. I was a total poo magnet. Like in my radio training, I mean, I could have 3 beepers on my channel. I could have like 5 priority 1 calls
Oh my
pending.
gosh.
It was just like, Sergeant, you copy, like the city's on fire, copy, like, like there's nothing you can do but wait. And I remember one day, like things were just popping off and I like looked at my trainer and she looked at me, she goes, "Just keep typing." And I just kept typing.
Exactly.
That's all you can do sometimes is just keep typing because
Oh
it
my
can
gosh.
get
Yeah.
so hectic.
Yeah, but I mean, that's how you learn is,
Mhm.
and you make those mistakes but you have your trainer there to help you when you fall. So that's always good.
Exactly. It's a lot of grace that has to be given on like both sides of the radio, right?
Oh,
Like,
yes.
we
Definitely.
have to train our replacements, we have to train the people. And I think sometimes, officers and dispatchers, we can little get it like, oh, like, they're not getting it or they're like this or that or that. And it's like, well, we've all been there. We've all like
Yes.
had the moment where the trainer finally goes, "Okay, you could talk on the radio," and you're like, 10-4. And you're just like, they're excited. You're like, yeah, I just 10-4 them. Like they heard me. That was me,
Well, I luckily I had no because I had been in the military. I had talked on the radio. I was in
Mm,
communications. I did that.
mhm.
My fear was confusing, and which I did quite often, confusing the phonetics.
Oh, yes,
So
yes,
you had the
yes.
military phonetics and you had law enforcement phonetics,
Mhm,
California
mhm,
law enforcement phonetics. When you would get these officers that would come in, the new ones, and they would give their phonetics in the military, and
mhm.
everybody in the room would be thrown off but me. And I was like, "Okay, we're just gonna go along." And I'd say, "Oh, he's brand new."
That is one of the things that I remember yelling at one of my like academy trainers is like, "Who's Ida? Why are we using Ida? I just feel like we could use a better, we could change it. It could be." They wouldn't let me change it. They're like, "It's Ida." I'm like, "I don't know who that is."
Oh my
And I
gosh,
always
yeah.
forget that one on the test, and I don't like that one.
Yeah, that was yeah, it's like learning a brand new language. It really is.
Gosh, it so is. And like, don't know if you had started on like 10 codes and 9 codes. And I
Oh
don't know,
my
was
gosh.
Stack still doing 9 codes when you were there back in the
At
day?
SAC PD, yes, 9
Yeah.
codes.
And then did you go
And
to El Dorado and they were like, "We're 10 code here."
well, yeah, we go to well, and I had a stint as in a security company in
Uh-huh.
between the two, so that
Okay.
I'd have a job, and that's where I kind of learned 10 code.
Mm.
So it was like, okay, now, yeah. But yeah, that was hard to get rid of the 9 code after you
Yeah.
learned it already.
You know, it's the one thing, the one gift that keeps giving from Sacramento Police Department is that
Yes,
9
it
code.
does. Well, and when I started listening to your podcast, you had mentioned that 9 code, and I went, wait a minute, I know where you
See?
work.
It's so specific. I think Sac and Oakland are the only people
Oh my
who
gosh.
do 9 code, and it's just like, why? Why?
Exactly. What? There's no rhyme or reason to it.
Someone
So
back in
yeah.
the day was like, "I'm gonna just make up our own thing. We're just gonna be unique. It's gonna be," and now it's harming us here
Yes,
today.
yes, it's trauma. My first trauma.
Seriously, though. Do you remember any of your first calls or early
Oh my
calls to
gosh, my
service?
very first 911 call was a mother who had found her daughter committed suicide in the bathroom.
Oh my gosh, it's tough for a
Yeah,
first call.
first 911
Oh,
call, yeah.
Mash. And were you guys just doing were you just doing police or were you doing medical at that time too?
So SAC, we were just so it was just the call takers. So
Mhm.
when we were there, you had the law side and you had the fire side.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So when we did our call taking, if it required medical, we'd transfer it over to the fire side, and they would do all the EMD
Hmm.
stuff.
Mhm. Mhm.
So yeah, I don't remember you guys. I guess you lost fire.
Yeah. I mean like the city hall building or the police building, fire and law are still there, like where you go do records reports and stuff.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Records reports, they share that building. But police has their own dispatch center like off
Yeah.
65th.
Yeah,
That
we
whole
were over on Burkett north
Yeah.
of the river in this tiny little building with all 50 of us sitting in there.
I believe I heard there was carpet walls at that one.
Yes. Yes. And the vacuum plugged into the floor, so you didn't have that machinery sound. You just got this whoosh. So it was really quiet when the guy came in the middle of the night to vacuum the floors. It was kind of funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it was kind of
Mm.
carpeted on the ceiling, and then our TDY was a separate phone at the back of the room.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
uh, yeah, it was quite. And I did go to the new one that you guys had,
Mhm. Mhm.
because you were at the new center over there off of
Mhm.
65th, and
Yeah.
so I went there for train the trainer.
Oh,
Um,
perfect. Yeah.
yeah, back in
Mhm.
like 2012, I think it was.
Yeah.
And so I got to see the new building, which was really cool.
How fun. How freaking cool. I love it. Um, so when you took that call, I mean, that's a tough
That
first
was
call.
that
You know
was
what I
tough.
mean? I think that's one of the harder it's one of the harder calls to take, but I think it's also one of the harder calls as a medical dispatcher to work through because you're just trying to get this distraught person, like to do something,
Right.
and I think that's just so challenging, like let alone to hear the person. I mean, it's heavy.
Well, and a mother's wail that her child has died is just
Yeah,
heart-wrenching. And
it
it
really
wasn't,
is.
I had another one years later back in El Dorado, and one of our frequent flyer crazy people, sorry.
We
um
all got
he
them.
just he just passed away, and listening, it took me 5 minutes to get his mother calmed down to even get a word out of her,
Yeah.
to figure out what was going on. I knew which house it was. I mean,
Mhm.
it's
You're like, "Oh,
uh,
that's Jimmy's house. We know that
right,
address." Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right. And so it's like, what's going on? And finally, you hear her what she said, and it's like, oh my god.
Mm.
So yeah, just that wailing though from a mom is so
Yeah.
heart wrenching.
Yeah. I can imagine. It's just, it's we talk about, these calls, which they're kind of the last process of like a long-term problem, right? Like,
Right.
folks who are choosing to complete suicide and, going to that level. Um, we talk about self-care, we talk about mental health.
Mhm.
As dispatchers, we hear these things, we witness them, we witness like the extreme, like funny, like they're having this, there it's like a good reaction. Then we hear the extreme, like really volatile, angry, we get all
Oh,
these
yeah.
spectrums of the mental health, world. And then we take it on the flip side. It's like, well, how are we helping ourselves? Like,
Exactly.
so we can
Exactly.
continue to help these people. And what are your
Right.
thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, so, you go along and you have those calls and it just builds up, builds up, builds up, builds up. And then my first officer involved shooting. I didn't know if my deputy was alive or dead until the next day. So
Wow.
I'm going home after my shift in tears because I don't know what's going on. Nobody's telling me what's going on.
Mm,
Your manager is saying just suck it up and come back tomorrow.
yeah.
What are you going to do? So, we got all this stuff going on and I thought I was doing really well. And then um long about 2015, I went in for open heart surgery
Wow.
to fix a heart defect.
Mm,
And along with that, 6 months later, I went into therapy because my
mhm,
coworkers were saying, something's wrong with you. We
mm,
need to get you fixed.
mm,
And so that's when I started therapy and realized that how much trauma I had been victim to my whole
mhm,
career. And
mhm,
so, you kind of go along and go along. And luckily I got into a depression support group
mm, mm.
and had it every week, which was great,
Yeah.
and that helped. And I was able to, kind of vent out things for a
Yeah.
couple years.
Yeah. We need to. And I don't know if we all realize it or we need to realize a little more, myself included, is just how like how sneaky it can be, right? Like it's
Oh
like
my gosh, yeah.
you don't really feel it, you don't really notice it, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh snap, like I I thought I was good, I didn't
Yeah,
even realize that these things were piling up and got me feeling a type of way. Um, so it's okay to just jump
absolutely.
in and get maintenance, like before you even feel like
Well,
you
and
need it, air quote.
it's just having that really, I think, lengthened my career a little longer than
Yeah.
had I not. I think I would have gone out in 2015 had
Mm,
things kept going the way they were. But
yeah.
had I had some great coworkers that, basically did an intervention and said, "Hey, get help. We don't
Yeah.
want to lose you."
Yeah, props to them because, I think
Yeah.
sometimes, we can get a little afraid, right? Like having hard
Oh, yeah.
conversations or like awkward conversations or assume feeling like you're assuming something that may not be, but sometimes you got to look out for your people and you got to just kind of.
Oh, absolutely. I would much rather have somebody taking care of themselves,
Mm, mm,
and getting that help they need so that they can help others rather than having that person that says, "Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine." And
mhm.
then absolutely collapsing when they get triggered on a 911 call.
Yeah. And triggers are so, they change, right? Like
Yes.
they just, and you never know what's going to develop. I think one of the um dispatchers at my first agency like poked their head into our little training room and they would just come in and talk to us. And one of the things they said is like, kid calls never bothered me until I was
Oh,
a
yeah.
parent. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And then so now it's a trigger for you now. Whereas before, when you was out here in the streets walling out, you're like, kid calls, whatever. But now that you have a family, you have children, like those calls
Oh,
are gonna weigh heavier.
yes, yes. And
Mhm.
and worse when you become a grandparent.
Yeah. I can't even imagine. I
Well,
tell
and we were sheriff coroner.
mm,
So we dealt with
mm,
all of that. We would send the
mhm.
deputies out to deal with it. And, um it really it would hit home. There were many times I went home and hugged my kids or my, you know, um years later my grandkids. It's like, come here, I gotta have a hug, or
Yeah.
I'd text my daughter and say, I need a picture. You need a picture of the kids.
Well, I tell my brother, I was like, "You can't procreate anymore. It's really bringing down my inheritance. There's
Oh, there
3
you
of them. I think 3 is enough. I just,
go. Oh my. Yeah. Well, I have 10 grandchildren
Woo!
ranging in age from I think the oldest one just turned 19
Oh,
to a year and a half. So I got a big span. I have one child of my own and 4 stepchildren. So
aw.
yeah, so I got and it's great. I love it.
Are we gonna get that 19-year-old into dispatching or what?
Oh no, she joined the Navy.
Well, I mean, she's not too far off from grandma there.
I'm telling you. Yeah. It's
Oh,
great.
man. So do you think your military experience really helped you, like, adapt to the world of first responder? Like
Oh, yes, yes, because
Mhm.
you're going from military to what do they call it, paramilitary. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
kind of that's you still have that structure,
yeah. Mm,
and I think being in the army really helped with that.
yeah. Yeah, I can definitely see that. I think it's weird. It takes a little getting used to coming from, like, a everyday civilian kinda esque, job history going
Mm,
into a situation where you really do have this like chain of command type
right.
of idea. And I think that could be a hard transition for folks who are trying to get into this line of work because you really got to respect that chain of command a bit because no one at the top is going to worry about your plight until you like go through the
Oh, yeah, exactly.
you gotta talk to your supervisor. The supervisor's not doing it. You gotta talk to like you gotta kind of respect
Yeah,
that line of communication.
absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's a different world,
Yeah,
most
for sure.
definitely.
For sure. But the thing that I do enjoy about being a dispatcher at this time um, is the technology that we have available.
Oh my gosh,
Um,
yes.
that what would you say is like the if you could do your job right now all over again with the tech that's available now, like what's the one thing that you would have wanted like on your first day
Oh
uh,
my gosh.
to be
Well,
available?
so when I call 911 a lot. Just saying, I go on walks and I find strange things in my neighborhood. So, this last one, when I called in, it wasn't, I just called non-emergency because it was a stolen vehicle that I came across. I it's just
Deborah,
odd.
are you out there hot wiring cars in
I am. Oh my God.
retirement?
But they were able to text me.
Yeah. Hmm. Hmm.
SACSO has they're able to text you information. So they texted me a couple phone numbers that I needed to call.
Oh.
Um yeah, it was amazing. I'm like, this is fantastic. When was this? I've only been gone for 4 years. What the heck? When I started out, we were on the green screens. We had 2 monitors
Mm.
with
Mhm.
I call them green screens, so the DOS.
Oh yeah, the DOS. Mhm.
Yeah, so we had that, and we had, one was our status monitor, one was our call entry screen,
Mm.
and we kind of grew from that. We went, in 2000, we got the desktop computers,
Mm.
um, and just seeing all of the technology. It's amazing. Just rapid SOS,
Mhm.
phase 1, phase 2, 911, cell phone, locations. I mean, we did search and rescue in El Dorado, and somebody could call 911 and we could find out where they were at. It was
Yeah.
just a matter of getting to them.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
amazing technology where they were putting them on the map so we could see it. And text to 911. I guess some agencies have video, which
Yeah.
is quite amazing.
Yeah.
Not that I would want to see that that person to see who I am, but just that the technology, I mean, it's just, I mean, soon we're just going to be beaming the officers over to where they need to
Oh
be
no.
at.
I say all the time when someone calls and they call like 2 minutes after their original
yeah.
call, I'm like, we can't teleport. We can't teleport just yet. Like,
Yeah.
we're working on it. We're trying, but
I mean, it's just amazing just to sit back now that I'm retired and look at how things have changed, and for the good as
Yeah.
far as the technology is concerned.
And it's like, I say all the time that doing the job back then with the lack of technology versus doing it now,
Oh
like,
my gosh.
I don't know if I can do it.
Well, and even when I started, they had to take the computers down once a month to do a backup. So we went on cards once a month. So I got my practice with that too.
Oh, I've successfully avoided manual
Oh
mode
my
in my
gosh.
career thus far, and trying to keep that going. I'm trying to.
Oh yeah.
10 years without manual mode. We'll see if it happens, but
Oh my gosh, that was quite amazing. Luckily, I was in El Dorado when that happened and not SAC, because holy moly, I couldn't imagine doing that
sometimes
at SAC.
like you'll walk into SAC and they'll have like a note on the door that's like manual mode, and you're like, I'm leaving. I'm not even.
I'm out.
I'm out. How long
I'm
will it
sick.
take for them to notice? And I lived like right around the corner from the
Oh my
center.
gosh.
I could throw a rock at like the tower, and I'm like, they'll come get me. If I don't show up, they're gonna just drive. They're just gonna drive right around that corner and come get me.
There you go. Luckily, I still lived in SAC, so it was an hour for them to come get me if they needed me.
A lot more work. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Oh man. But another thing that changed, I think, so in our industry, really as a whole, from patrol to our centers, is the idea that mental health is a thing. Like
Yes.
as you said, back in the
Absolutely.
day, like the idea of not knowing if my officer's okay and someone just telling me to go home.
Yeah.
Like what? Like I could never. Like
Well,
today.
and it's today. Oh my gosh! So it was night and day. So the my last critical incident, which was the one that sent me into retirement, I had an officer shot and killed on my channel.
Gosh.
And everything that I went, because I went to what do they call it, CISM, critical incident stress management, a couple years prior to, so this was in 2019 when my incident happened. And everything happened just almost like textbook from what I was trained. I mean, that night we had a small de-escalation meeting. 2 days later we had a group session with a therapist. And I even, because I had already been in mental health care, I made sure to call an emergency appointment for my therapist. And then after my appointment with the therapist, my one of my friends who's also peer support, she worked at Elk Grove PD and she was right by where I went to. And so I called her up and we spent 2 hours sitting out back at Elk Grove PD talking.
Yeah.
So, I seeing the difference though in how we were treated as dispatchers.
Yeah.
And given that time off and given as much time as we needed off to take care of our mental health was so much different than when I started. When I started, it was just go, be back tomorrow. See you then.
Yes.
And you're like, what the heck?
Yeah, I couldn't imagine. We had an officer involved, um, shooting and death, and while I was at SAC PD, and
Oh, that was Tara, wasn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, we were just sitting on the channel like all night, just like listening to shots being popped off, and like
Oh my gosh.
I couldn't imagine like my supervisor being like, "All right, clock out. We'll see
Oh
you and let
yeah.
you know what happened after." Like what? I just
Yeah,
I
it's just
could not.
crazy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But, it's something that we've all got to look at though, because we're going through more trauma as dispatchers on a regular than a lot of the officers are,
Mm-hmm.
because we may have two or three traumatic incidents a night during our shift.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You pick up that 911 call and you've got somebody actively stabbing someone, you can hear the screaming in the background, or you're picking up that 911 call and somebody's saying, "My brother just shot my dad." You're picking up that night, but you're going up and down too, because you have those other calls
Mm-hmm.
that are just what we would consider routine or
Yeah.
not stressful. The 3-year-old playing on the phone, or the alarm company calling and you're putting in that thing. So we're doing a lot of up and down, but we don't have a lot of downtime to to process all of this information and to heal from that information. That
Yeah, and I think that is a significant difference between a patrol and dispatch. And it's not to say like one it's not we're trauma Olympics, right? We're not
Oh
trying to,
yeah, no, there's no comparison.
you know what I mean? Like it's both trauma, it's both this, it's both equally traumatic. But the difference is that I'll send my officer to a stabbing, and they're going to be on that call for 8 out of the 12-hour shift. One
Right.
call, you know. Um, but like you said, I send that officer to that stabbing, and now I'm answering another DV. I'm answering, suicide attempt. I'm answering, so I'm working through, as you said, multiple critical incidents where our officers have the fortune and misfortune to have to respond out to these scenes,
Hmm.
but they're only sitting on that call for an extended period of
Right.
time,
Right. And
so
but I don't want to discredit their trauma, because
mhm,
they're getting it in their face.
smell it, look at it,
Oh yeah.
touch it,
They have a
right.
lot of, the visual, the hearing,
Mhm,
they're getting all their senses, where we're listening to it, and
mhm.
we're not able to do anything about it
Yeah.
other than get deputies on the way, or get officers, or send fire, or whichever. And we're not allowed to process that.
Yeah.
And so, you know, getting a therapist and getting yourself taken care of, and I was on antidepressants for years.
Mhm.
It didn't mean I was crazy. It just kept me at a level that I wasn't
Mhm.
crazy.
We all need a little help, you know? We don't want Deborah calling you, being the
Well,
regular caller after 9.
exactly. It's like you don't want your dispatcher being that bubbling pile of goo on the floor,
Yeah.
because, they can't handle what's going on.
Yeah.
And we do what we got to do. And then, there's those that self medicate, and
Mhm.
there's a lot of that going around. It's not
Mhm.
like in the olden days when dispatchers lived on cigarettes and coffee.
I talked to someone who was like, "Yeah, they were smoking in
Oh my
dispatch when I
gosh.
first started,"
Yep.
and I was like,
Oh yeah.
"What?" Not with those carpet walls now, stop
Yeah.
it.
So, or going out to the what was the SAC PD was the Zebra Club at 7
Oh
in the
my
morning.
god.
Dispatchers and cops, choir practice at the Zebra Club.
I
And,
do remember a memory unlocked. This is how 911 calls work. I do remember like 7 in the morning, maybe 8 in the morning, like a pocket dial, an open line, and I could hear this guy ordering a beer. And it was like a Monday, 8 a.m. And I'm just like, you know what, man? Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
sometimes you need it. But yeah, I mean, we definitely don't want to get into a situation where we are self-medicating and we are
Right.
bottling all of our feelings up, like therapy is needed. It's a tool, it's
Sure.
not a
Cool.
it's not going to fix all of our problems. It's just helping us manage them.
Yes. Yes. And giving us the tools to do our job.
Mhm.
So if you're taking those like I don't know if you're familiar with Kaiser, you're
Oh,
Northern
very.
California here, but they had during their mental health department they do classes. So
Mm,
classes on depression, classes on anxiety, classes on workplace stress.
mhm,
And I
mhm,
was taking all of these classes. I still have all the material and getting all those and using them to deal with callers too
mm.
was awesome. If we could get dispatchers to take mental health classes just to help
Mm.
do their job, it
Yeah,
would be great.
yeah. And one thing I think that we need to be aware of and intentional with in our centers is when dispatchers, we're a little colorful. We're a little flavorful. We have some dark humor and
Dark humor
sometimes
and potty mouth.
right, we pull right from the hip sometimes, and just say, I know me, like my coworkers are like, Ash is probably the worst of us all. Sometimes I just say what comes off the top of my head. But when we're talking about mental health and we're talking about tough calls and we're talking about seeking services, we should really be aware of the language we're using and the things that we're saying, because if someone's on the verge of not going and getting help, and then their coworker says like, therapy, you don't need it, or kind of makes a
Oh,
dig
exactly.
dig at dig at the treatment or the process, it might prevent someone who needs it from going and trying it out. So I
Exactly.
think, yes, like have fun at work, where no one's going to
Mm.
change the sailor in the comm center. But when we are speaking about these things, we do need to be aware that our words have power, right?
Yes, they do.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And you don't want to shame someone just because they're feeling down, just because
Yeah.
they're not handling something the way you want them to handle it or the way you handle it.
Hmm.
Everybody's different. We all have different responses and we all handle trauma and critical incidents differently.
Hmm.
And we
Hmm.
need to be aware of that and look out for our partners and somebody who's sitting in the corner with their back to the room and they're crying at their desk. Maybe we should, have a
Yeah.
little grace and send them home or get them some help, have them talk to somebody.
Mhm.
A lot of times chaplains are even though it has that stigma of being religious, a lot of people don't like talking to them, but
Mhm.
they're really good just to have somebody to talk to.
Yeah. Mhm.
And they're usually around.
Yeah, that's funny you said another memory unlocked. The chaplains at SAC PD would always come into the comm center and just do like they would always have chocolate. So
Of
I think
course.
they knew how to get us to at least say hi. They'd get offer us
Yes.
some chocolate, and then we'd have like a little 5-minute conversation, or longer if it served that person. But we did have chaplains who would show up and come around, and
Oh
they always
yeah.
had chocolate.
My chaplain with the National Guard was actually our department chaplain in El Dorado when I first
Oh,
started.
oh, very
So
cool.
I knew him, we already had that relationship, which was good.
Yeah,
But, just having somebody to talk to that isn't judgmental
yeah.
really helps.
It does. It does go a long freaking way. It really
Yeah.
does. Oh my gosh. Well, what do you think for, because I know when we're talking about like, the dispatcher crying at their desk and um, helping those individuals, and I know that oftentimes when we think about taking a mental health day, thinking about time off in this line of work, we could hesitate to do that because staffing, like if I call out, it ruins someone else's day. Like it's not like staffing a normal 9 to 5
Right.
job. What would you say to someone who's having a hard time, taking that time off or asking for that that those moments in regards to thinking of staffing and things of that nature?
Take the time.
Mhm. Simple,
Don't
right?
question it.
Uh-huh.
If you are having a day and like example, I used to cry going to work,
Yeah.
cry coming home from work,
Mhm.
and feeling guilty that I shouldn't take that time.
Mm.
And I think it makes it worse
Yeah.
because you're forcing yourself to go in and you're not getting that help and you're not doing that self-care,
Mhm.
and I think it made it worse for me
Mhm.
and probably caused helped in the perfect storm that was my last year there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you know
Mhm. And that's what we're trying to avoid, right?
it
Is that perfect
exactly,
storm, you know?
exactly.
Mhm.
And I mean, take the time, go on a drive. I mean, I always tell people take your vacations too. It's not just that sick day or anything like that, but take your vacations. Go
Mm.
somewhere that is not law enforcement related. Get out and do things. A lot of agencies work like 3 days on, 3 days off, 4 days
Mm.
on, 4 days off, that type of schedule. You
Mhm.
have a 3-day weekend every weekend. Go do something. Get away. Drive through the mountains, go to Tahoe. I mean, just get out and
Yeah.
do something.
Yeah. And that unplugging does go a long way. And some of the best advice that I got when I first started, for those listening, this is my secret sauce, is that overtime you're taking, always take half in pay, half in
Half
time.
and comp now. I
Because
never did that. I took it all in pay and I
yes,
kind of
because that
regretted it.
that's the little red devil on the shoulder, right? You're like,
Yeah.
I need this bag, I need this money, but that time adds up so fast and you're gonna need it. You're gonna want it.
Yep.
And I know it's super easy to just take everything and pay. But let's be honest, we're not trying to get into that next tax bracket. They're just gonna take it all from you anyways. So
Well,
let's
and
just
yeah,
let's take
I
the
had
time.
quite a sick leave bank built up. I had over 500, but I was able when I went out for my surgery, I was
Mhm.
able to do it all on sick time.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's nice.
So it wasn't disability, it wasn't reduced pay. It
Yeah,
was, yeah, full
yeah.
time,
Recover it
you
and
know.
getting that check. We need that too.
Ex- but even then on my last year I used it to supplement because I was on workman's comp.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I had a lot of supplemental stuff going out. But yeah, I mean, you don't want to, but the vacation time, a lot of agencies have the separate, but for
Mhm.
those that have the is it PTO?
Yeah, we have straight PTO.
So
Mhm.
it's your sick and your vacation mixed together,
Mhm.
and you have to budget that a little bit
You
different.
do, you do. It's that's a little where I think at SAC we had a really cool thing at SAC. I think they got rid of it though. We had like holiday time, we had the sick time, and then we had comp time. I think that's how it went. Um, but yeah, taking part of it in
Yeah,
time just to have, no matter what your banks
absolutely.
are. And
But yeah,
usually there's a certain cap, right? So like say
right.
100 hours is your cap. Anything over, you're gonna have to take time because you're not don't want to lose
Yeah,
it.
with El Dorado, you could bank as much as you want. You could have
Yeah.
like, 1,000 hours of sick time,
Mhm.
but they only paid out so much when you retired.
Okay. Yeah. Because I
So
know
you
at this
had to use a lot of
agency,
it.
yeah, at this agency, they like let you cash it out once a
Oh,
year,
nice.
for the folks who have like a lot of hours. So it's technically it's a private savings bank, like
Chris
if you
Christmas
really
money.
if you really think about it, all these things. But I mean, it's just so many different ways that you're taking care of yourself is really
Yes,
what it comes down to.
absolutely.
When we talk about taking our time, taking our vacation, it's easy. I posted a reel today. Um, basically like you show up for overtime and you're like, what? And you're like, why am I here? You know? And that's advice I got too early on, was like, do not overload yourself with overtime, especially the new folks who just fresh off of training. They're big kid now. They're allowed
Oh
to
my
sign
gosh.
up for overtime. And I remember my shift lead, she was like, if I see you signing up for like 80 hours of overtime, I'm declining it. I was just like, okay. She was
Well,
like, you know,
when you get to be, over 20 years in, you kind of
Mm.
let them do it. Here, you guys go right ahead because I want my weekend.
right? Like, come on, don't you want to work? You know, but making sure you're not working too much. For me, I was trying to
Exactly.
buy my first big girl couch. So I was taking some weird overtime, but
Oh my gosh, yeah.
we got to practice that self-care even when we're chasing the money. So
Yep.
well, Deborah, as we wrap it up, the last thing that I ask everyone who comes onto the show is, what advice would you give someone who's considering a career in dispatch?
Go get yourself a therapist within the first year.
Mm-hmm.
Go take your time, find that person that you click with,
Mm-hmm.
and go see them, every 3 months, every 6 weeks, because you're going to learn those tools and you're going to have that person. So when pardon the expression, when the shit hits the fan,
Yeah.
you will have somebody that you can go to talk to and get help.
Yeah. I like that. I like that idea, getting a therapist in the first year. It makes so much, like now, it makes so much sense. And if someone told me that now, hopefully they're listening and taking it in. But like thinking back, like I don't think anyone's said that specific advice, and it's just so simple and so true. Like,
Yeah.
let's be preventative. We can't be preventative a lot of times in this line of work.
And you do preventative medicine for your physical
Mhm.
health.
Exactly.
There's a lot of us that take medications to keep us moving along the way we're supposed to. And we go to the doctor on a regular basis. Why
Yeah.
aren't we going to see somebody for mental health also? And it should be across the board. Firefighters, cops, dispatchers, go in and get that mental health and have that established before you need it.
Mm.
And then, maybe even talking to the chiefs and the sheriffs, get a psychologist on staff so that there's somebody there when they're needed.
Mm-hmm. Such great advice, such great stories. Deborah, thank you so much for joining me, for leading the way at Sacramento Police Department.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Up there.
My picture's still up there too.
Hey, that's true. I gotta go.
All the academies were.
Yeah, all the
I was like,
academies.
oh my God, there I am.
So cool. Again, thank you so much. I've had a wonderful time chatting with you.
Oh, thank you for having me. This was great.
Awesome. All right. I'll be right back with you.
Okay.
All right, everybody. That was another amazing episode here at Let's Talk Dispatch. Again, Deborah, thank you so much for coming onto the show, being so transparent and vulnerable with your story. Your advice is so solid, and genuinely, anyone who is listening, who's early in their career, late in their career, just getting started, mental health is really a thing we should all be talking about. We should all be taking care of ourselves. And I really do love the advice that Deborah gave, which is get a therapist within that first year of doing any line of work that is first responder related. And it does take a little time to find the right fit, with your therapist. So don't feel like you try one and it didn't work out. Do some shopping there, find a good fit, and take care of yourself so we can continue to take care of everybody else. Thank you all. Like, subscribe, tell a friend. Till next time, stay raspy. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Let's Talk Dispatch, a Raspy Dispatcher production. If you liked the podcast, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, leave a 5-star review, and of course, tell a friend. If If you want to be a guest, head to the raspydispatcher.com and check out our additional resources. Until next time, stay raspy, everybody.